It all started on what I thought would be a normal Monday morning. I had just come back from my night shift at the hospital, utterly exhausted and ready to collapse into bed. But as I pulled onto my street, I noticed something that stopped me dead in my tracks. A strange car was parked in my driveway. My driveway. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. Maybe a neighbor had a guest who didn't realize they'd parked on private property. No big deal, right? So, instead of flying into a rage, I parked on the street, which, I might add, is a rare luxury in this neighborhood. Scribbled a polite note and stuck it under the car's windshield wiper. Hi there. Just a heads up. This is a private driveway. Please don't park here. Thanks. Satisfied with my good-natured approach, I trudged inside, collapsed onto my couch, and promptly passed out. Little did I know that my driveway drama had only just begun. The next morning, I walked outside to find the same car sitting there like an uninvited guest who didn't know when to leave. My polite note was crumpled up and shoved into the bushes. Cute. I sighed, grabbed a fresh piece of paper, and decided to give it another go. This time, my note was a bit more direct. Private driveway. Do not park here. This is your final warning. Satisfied, I went about my day, assuming that anyone with an ounce of common sense would get the message. But when I came back from running errands, guess what was waiting for me? Yep, the car was still there. I was officially done playing nice. The next morning, I decided to confront the driver directly. I was ready to be polite but firm, laying out the basics of property law for anyone who needed a quick refresher. As I stood by the offending vehicle, the door to the house across the street swung open, and out stepped her. You know that feeling when you just know someone's trouble the moment you see them? That was Karen in a nutshell. She had the signature haircut, the aggressive march, and an air of entitlement so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. She spotted me standing by her car and immediately barked. What do you think you're doing by my car? Your car, I said, trying to stay calm, is in my driveway. You've been parking here for days, and I've already left 2 notes. She crossed her arms, a smirk creeping onto her face. I only park here because the street parking sucks. It's not like you're using it all the time. What's the big deal? Oh, the big deal? Let me count the ways. My elderly father, who relies on my driveway to get in and out of the house safely. My wife, who needs the space for their car when they get home from work. Me, who just wants to sleep without wondering if I'll have to park a mile away from my own home. But I kept it simple. This is private property, I said. You can't just use it because it's convenient for you. Please move your car and don't park here again. Karen let out a dramatic sigh, muttering something about selfish people, before finally climbing into her car and driving off. Victory, right? Wrong. 2 days later, I came home to find her car back in my driveway, as if nothing had happened. This time, she'd parked in such a way that my wife couldn't even get out of the garage. Furious, I knocked on her door, ready to confront her again. When she opened the door, she didn't even look surprised. Oh, it's you, she said, as if I were the one inconveniencing her. Yes, it's me, I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. Your car is blocking my garage. Move it. Now. Karen rolled her eyes. Look, I'm not going to argue with you every time I need to park somewhere. The driveway was empty. What's the harm? The harm, I said through gritted teeth, is that this is my driveway, not a public parking lot. Move. Your car. She sighed again, this time more theatrically, and stomped over to her car like I just asked her to run a marathon. As she backed out of the driveway, she shouted, "You're ridiculous. It's just a driveway." I wanted to shout back, "It's not just a driveway. It's my driveway," but I bit my tongue. For now. A week went by without incident, and I thought maybe Karen had finally gotten the message. But one fateful Saturday morning, I woke up to find not only her car in my driveway, but a second car parked behind it. She had invited a friend to join in on the fun. That was it. I snapped a photo of both cars, called a tow truck, and waited. Watching the tow truck hook up Karen's car and her friend's car was one of the most satisfying moments of my life. As the trucks pulled away, I couldn't help but smile. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of Karen's epic meltdown. I don't know what I expected when Karen found out her car was gone, but the sheer spectacle she created exceeded even my wildest imagination. I was sitting on my porch, enjoying a cup of coffee, when I saw her marching down the street, her phone glued to her ear. She looked absolutely livid, her face redder than a sunburn and her purse swinging wildly with every step. I watched as she stomped up to my driveway, looked around, and then started pacing back and forth like a detective at a crime scene. Finally, she spotted me sitting there. "You!" she shouted, jabbing her finger in my direction. "Where's my car?" I took a sip of my coffee, savoring the moment before answering. "Oh, your car? It got towed." Her jaw dropped. "You towed my car?" "Sure did," I said, setting my mug down. "You were parked on my private property." Again, her reaction was, well, let's just say it wasn't what you'd call measured. She threw her hands in the air, let out a dramatic wail, and started pacing even faster. "You had no right to tow my car." "None," she yelled. "This is harassment. I'm gonna call the police on you." I leaned back in my chair, utterly unfazed. "Go ahead. I'll wait." To my utter delight, Karen actually called the police. And because I had nothing better to do that day, I decided to stick around and see how this would play out. About 20 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out, looking mildly annoyed, as though they already knew they were about to deal with some nonsense. Karen ran up to them, waving her arms like she was trying to direct a plane to land. "Officers," she shouted. "That man right there." She pointed at me like I was a wanted fugitive, had my car towed for no reason. "He's been harassing me, and I demand you arrest him." The officers turned to me, eyebrows raised. "Is this true?" one of them asked. "Not even a little bit," I replied, standing up. "She's been parking in my driveway without permission for weeks. I've warned her multiple times to stop. When she ignored me, I called a tow truck. I've got photos, videos, and a copy of the tow receipt if you'd like to see them." Karen's face fell, but she wasn't ready to admit defeat. "He's lying," she screeched. "It's just a driveway. You can't tow someone for parking in it." The officer held up a hand to stop her. "Ma'am, a private driveway is private property. If you were parked there without permission, he's well within his rights to have your car towed." Karen gasped as if he'd just told her she was banned from Starbucks for life. "But I live here. I'm part of this neighborhood. He's being unreasonable." The second officer turned to her, clearly trying to keep his patience. "Ma'am, do you have any proof that you were allowed to park there?" Karen opened her mouth, closed it, and then opened it again, but no words came out. She looked like a fish gasping for air. "That's what I thought," the officer said. "This is a civil matter, not a criminal one. You'll need to pay the towing fees to retrieve your car. And I suggest you stop parking in his driveway." I swear, if looks could kill, I'd have dropped dead on the spot. Karen glared at me with a fury so intense it could have powered the entire neighborhood. But there was nothing she could do. The officers got back in their car and left, and Karen stomped off in the opposite direction, muttering something about how she was going to make me pay. For about a week, I thought that was the end of it. Karen's car was nowhere to be seen, and I foolishly allowed myself to believe that she'd finally learned her lesson. But Karen, being Karen, wasn't done yet. One morning, I walked outside to find a letter taped to my front door. It was handwritten in Karen's neat but aggressive script, and it read, "Dear neighbor, you've made things very difficult for me with your petty and selfish actions. I've spoken to other neighbors, and we all agree that you're creating unnecessary conflict by refusing to share your driveway. As a member of this community, I expect you to be more accommodating in the future. If you don't want to cooperate, I'll have no choice but to escalate this matter. Sincerely, Karen." I couldn't help but laugh. The idea that Karen was trying to recruit allies against me was so absurd, it almost felt like a comedy sketch. I decided to do a little investigating of my own. That evening, I went around to some of my neighbors to ask if Karen had, in fact, rallied them to her side. As it turned out, most of them were just as fed up with her as I was. "She came by last week," one neighbor said. "Kept going on about how unfair you were being. But honestly, I don't blame you. She's parked in my driveway before, too. Another neighbor chimed in. She's always causing trouble. Last month, she complained to the HOA because my kids were too noisy, playing in our backyard. By the time I got home, I had a pretty good sense of where the neighborhood stood. Karen's allies didn't exist. If anything, she was on thin ice. I couldn't wait to see what she'd try next. After realizing her Neighbors United fantasy wasn't going anywhere, Karen decided to take matters into her own hands. Or, more accurately, into her clipboard. One sunny Saturday morning, I walked outside to find Karen standing at the end of my driveway with what looked like a petition in hand. She was stopping anyone who passed by, talking animatedly and gesturing toward my house. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" I asked, crossing my arms. Karen spun around, her face lighting up with the kind of fake sweetness that could rot your teeth. "Oh, hello. I'm just collecting signatures for a neighborhood petition. We're trying to address some issues with, inconsiderate homeowners." "Inconsiderate homeowners?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. Karen gave me a tight smile. "You specifically..." I couldn't help but laugh. "You're circulating a petition about me? For what? Enforcing my property rights? You've been hostile and uncooperative," she snapped. "This is a community, and we're supposed to work together. But no, you had my car towed like some kind of tyrant. People like you shouldn't even live here if you can't get along with your neighbors." "Oh, really?" I said, leaning against the mailbox. "How's the petition going so far?" Karen hesitated, clutching her clipboard a little tighter. "It's going great. Everyone agrees with me." "Aha. Mind if I take a look?" I asked, pointing at the clipboard. "Absolutely not," she said, holding it behind her back. "This is private." "Kind of like my driveway?" I quipped. Karen sputtered, clearly caught off guard. "You're impossible. Just wait. You'll see how many people are on my side." And with that, she stomped off down the street, leaving me shaking my head. A few days later, I got a text from my next-door neighbor, Sarah. "Hey, Karen just came by with some ridiculous petition about your driveway. Thought you'd want to know." Apparently, Karen had been pestering everyone within a 3-block radius, trying to get them to sign her petition. Her argument boiled down to this: I was unreasonable for not letting her park in my driveway, and the neighborhood should collectively encourage me to be more accommodating. But here's the kicker. Not a single person had signed it. "She's been parking in other people's driveways, too," Sarah said when I stopped by to chat. "She tried to frame it like you were the problem, but everyone knows how entitled she is. Honestly, we're all sick of her." Hearing that was music to my ears. Not only was Karen's smear campaign failing spectacularly, but now the entire neighborhood was firmly on my side. I thought Karen might give up after the petition debacle, but I underestimated her commitment to being the absolute worst. One evening, I came home to find something truly unbelievable. Karen had dragged 2 orange traffic cones and a cheap plastic "No parking" sign into my driveway. She'd set them up in a neat little barricade, complete with a hand-drawn note taped to the sign that read, "This driveway is now reserved for community use. Violators will be reported." I stared at the scene for a solid minute, wondering if I'd somehow wandered into an alternate dimension where Karen actually owned the universe. Then I burst out laughing. "Oh, she's lost it," my wife said when I showed her the scene. I snapped a few photos, removed the cones and sign, and tossed them onto Karen's lawn. Then I called the police non-emergency line to report the incident, just in case she tried to escalate further. After Karen's community driveway stunt, I decided it was time to put an end to this nonsense once and for all. I didn't want to deal with her anymore, and clearly, she wasn't going to back down unless I made it absolutely clear that her behavior wouldn't fly. Step 1. I installed a security camera facing my driveway. It wasn't fancy, just a basic motion-activated camera with night vision, but it got the job done. Step 2. I posted a new sign at the edge of my driveway. This one wasn't sarcastic. It was straight to the point. Private driveway. No parking. Violators will be towed at owner's expense. Step 3. I preemptively called the tow company to let them know I might need their services again. They remembered Karen's car from the last time and assured me they'd be ready to act if needed. It didn't take long for Karen to test my new system. One afternoon, I was at home when my security camera sent me an alert. I checked the footage and, surprise, surprise, there was Karen, pulling into my driveway like she owned the place. I didn't even bother going outside to confront her. Instead, I called the tow company and let them do their thing. About 30 minutes later, Karen's car was gone, and I was enjoying a nice cup of tea on my porch when she came storming down the street. "Where is my CR?" she screamed, waving her arms like a lunatic. "Probably at the impound lot," I said, taking a sip of my tea. "Didn't you see the sign?" Karen's face turned a deep shade of crimson. "You can't keep doing this. This is illegal." "It's not illegal," I said calmly. "It's my property. You're trespassing. I warned you multiple times, and now there's a camera recording everything. Keep it up, and I'll file a formal complaint for harassment." She let out an incoherent scream and stomped off, leaving me with a sense of satisfaction I hadn't felt in weeks. That was the last time Karen parked in my driveway. Word quickly spread about her latest towing fiasco, and the neighbors had a field day gossiping about it. Even Sarah, who usually stayed out of drama, admitted that Karen had become the neighborhood laughingstock. I still see Karen occasionally, but she avoids eye contact and scurries away like a scolded child whenever she passes my house. As for me, I finally have my driveway back, and the peace of mind that comes with knowing Karen won't be bothering me again anytime soon. With Karen out of my driveway and the rest of the neighborhood firmly on my side, life finally returned to normal. My wife and I could come and go without worrying about being blocked in. My elderly dad had easy access when he visited, and I didn't have to mentally prepare for a battle every time I came home from work. But the neighborhood wasn't done talking about Karen. It turned out that Karen's towing debacle had made her something of a local legend, but not in the way she'd hoped. The story of Karen's car getting towed, twice, spread like wildfire. People started referring to my driveway as the Karen zone, and the sight of the tow truck parked out front became a running joke. With Karen's reign of driveway terror officially over, I finally got to enjoy the peace and quiet I'd been craving. Every now and then, I catch Karen walking past my house, her head down and her pace quick. Sometimes, I'll give her a little wave, just to see if she'll acknowledge me. She never does. If there's one thing I've learned from this whole ordeal, it's that boundaries are important, and some people will test them no matter how clear you make them. Karen thought she could bully her way into getting what she wanted, but all she got was a hefty towing bill and a reputation as the neighborhood laughingstock. And if another Karen ever tries to mess with my driveway, well, let's just say the tow truck driver and I are on a first-name basis now.